Welcome to the Part Days channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 6 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're going to do a deeply focused literal breakdown, what's known as the Peshat. We'll look exactly at what the Hebrew text says to uncover the real mechanics behind ancient dedication and blessing.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the context in the Nazarite, cover the strict rules of separation, look at completing the vow, unpack the famous priestly blessing, highlight some key simple ideas, and then wrap it all up with practical lessons and a recap. Let's get right into it.
Our whole goal is to anchor ourselves directly in the original text. No skipping verses, no long historical tangents. Just a straightforward, step-by-step walkthrough to see exactly how this chapter moves from extreme personal devotion to a beautiful communal blessing.
All right, Section 1, Context and the Nazarite.
If we look strictly at the Hebrew text of Sefer Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, chapter 6 introduces us to a really fascinating type of person. It actually doesn't start with the whole nation of Israel. Instead, it zooms way in on individual agency. It asks, what happens when an ordinary, everyday person decides to take a massive step outside their normal routine?
Well, that person is called a Nazarite. The Hebrew root word here is nazir, which basically means separation or being set apart. This is a man or a woman who makes a super intense, temporary vow to dedicate themselves 100% to the Lord. This isn't a permanent class of priests who are just born into the job. No, this is an everyday person actively choosing to step into a period of elevated holiness.
Moving right along to Section 2, the rules of separation.
The text gives us three very distinct, highly visible rules for this vow. First up, absolute abstinence from wine and grapes. Literally nothing from the vine. Second, their hair has to grow freely. Not a single razor can touch their head. Imagine months of a divinely mandated bad hair day, all for the sake of spiritual focus. And third, complete avoidance of dead bodies. Even if it's a close family member, they have to stay away to maintain this absolute peak state of purity.
But what happens if something goes wrong? Well, verse 12 lays it out. If a Nazarite accidentally breaks these rules, say someone suddenly passes away right next to them, there's a strict protocol. They have to bring a year-old male lamb as a guilt offering. And honestly, the craziest part? All the previous days of their vow are completely voided, gone. They have to start their counted days of separation all over again from day one. It just goes to show how uncompromising this dedication really is.
Okay, Section 3, completing the vow. Verse 13 tells us that when the days of their separation are finally over, the Nazarite is physically brought to the door of the tent of meeting. This is huge. They're transitioning from this isolated bubble of intense personal holiness back into everyday normal life. And this massive transition has to happen right at the communal center of worship.
Now, verses 14 and 15 detail an incredibly complex and, frankly, expensive set of required offerings. We're talking a year-old male lamb for a burnt offering, a year-old ewe lamb for a sin offering, a full-grown ram for a fellowship offering, plus a whole basket of unleavened bread mixed with oil. Think about the sheer financial cost of that for an ancient, everyday person. This massive investment of livestock and grain totally highlights the heavy spiritual weight of concluding this vow.
In verses 16 and 17, the priest steps in as the necessary mediator. You see, the Nazarite doesn't just do this all by themselves. The priest formally takes over the process, presenting the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the fellowship offering before the Lord, along with the unleavened bread, to officially process the Nazarite's return to society.
Finally, in verse 18, we get this incredibly vivid scene. The Nazarite stands right at the entrance and shaves off all the hair that's been growing wildly throughout their dedication. Then, they take that hair and place it directly into the fire of the fellowship offering. It's a powerful, tangible, physical finalization of their separation. The vow is officially over.
That brings us to Section 4, the priestly blessing.
Following that super intricate completion of an individual's vow, verse 22 makes a fundamental shift. God instructs Aaron and his sons on exactly how to bless the rest of the Israelites. So we pivot completely from the extreme devotion of one single person to God blanketing the entire community in what we call Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing.
This famous blessing is structured in three incredibly profound parts. It's like an escalating staircase. Each line builds directly upon the last, expanding the scope of the grace being offered to the people.
Just listen to these exact words from verses 24 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. This is a literal, word-for-word formula given by God. It asks for protection, for divine grace, and it totally culminates in the ultimate gift of peace. In Hebrew, that word is shalom, which means absolute total wholeness and completeness.
Verse 27 wraps up the entire chapter with God's ultimate promise. It says, "So they will put my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them." When the priests speak these specific words out loud, they are essentially placing God's name upon the people. And the absolutely crucial takeaway here, the priests don't actually do the blessing themselves. God himself actively steps in and fulfills the words spoken by the priests.
Let's move to Section 5. Key simple ideas.
We have this incredibly striking contrast in the text. On one side, we have extreme individual dedication. That's the Nazarite vow. This is an intense, rule-heavy, costly effort of one specific person striving to reach up and separate themselves for God. But then on the other side, we have universal communal grace, the priestly blessing. This is free, unconditional peace that God commands to be spoken over everyone. It's just a beautiful juxtaposition of human effort reaching up and God's unearned grace reaching right back down.
And finally, Section 6, Lessons and Recap.
So what does all of this mean for us today? Well, first, true dedication requires clear physical boundaries. You can't just merely think about being dedicated, you actually have to change your daily habits. Second, re-entering normal life after a period of intense spiritual focus requires a mindful, deliberate process. You have to transition carefully. And lastly, words have immense power. Just simply speaking a formula of grace over others can bring about profound peace.
To sum it all up, Numbers chapter 6 brilliantly bridges the gap from rigorous personal sacrifice right over to the comforting reality of God's overarching protection for everyone. It shows us there's space for both individual discipline and communal grace. So the big question to leave you with is this. In your own life right now, are you being called to the strict discipline of the Nazarite, or do you simply need to rest in the peace of the priestly blessing?
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.